Kissing introductions, mold issues, homeschooling, drinking in the streets. In today's video, we are covering 6 things that are relatively normal to the Portuguese that most Americans would consider hard to imagine.
And most of these you won't even notice when you're here on a holiday. It's really when you've lived here for a bit that you start to see the differences in everyday life.
So if you're thinking about moving to Portugal and you want to get more of a feel for what the customs and processes are, then this video is for you. Let's go.
Welcome back to our channel, Nations Without Borders. My name is Josine.
And I'm Eric, and together with our daughter, Nora, we are the Nation family. We moved to Portugal back in 2022, and now every Sunday on our YouTube channel, we publish a video about our lives, our experiences, and just general knowledge on what it takes to live and move here to Portugal.
In this week's video, we're going to talk about what the Portuguese find very normal, but would be hard to imagine in the US.
Now, we're not going to cover all of the major culture shocks, because we've done that in another video, which you can check out right here, where we cover topics like bureaucracy, healthcare, crime rates, stuff like that. This video is more tailored towards just like the small things in everyday life that you won't really notice until you move here.
They are good to know though. So let's start with the first one.
We're gonna start off with greeting customs, specifically kissing when you meet someone new.
Yeah, so let's use an example here. Let's say we're at a birthday party and I'm being introduced to a new person, a friend of a friend. In the US, that would be a handshake. Highly likely a hug, but most of the time just a handshake. Hi, I'm Josie.
If it's a man to a woman, sometimes it's the classic side hug.
It's the weird one. This. Like, what is this? But no, here in Portugal, you're being greeted with like 2 kisses on the cheeks.
Which can also be confusing for me because in the Netherlands, it's 3.
Yeah.
3 kisses. I don't know if they're like odd numbers or what's up with that, but so sometimes I'm like, wait, how many kisses do we do?
No, the kisses in the Netherlands is only when you know each other. It's not with a stranger. Here in Portugal, the 2 kisses is also with strangers.
In an informal setting.
In an informal setting, yes, because
if it's professional or just not, if it's more formal, then also a handshake would be the custom.
Yeah, don't worry about walking into a bank and being greeted with like 2 kisses by your banker or anything. No, this is purely friends to friends introducing each other.
One way to totally give off that you're American is you still go in for the handshake. And
I do that too. I felt very awkward in the beginning. Like, okay, hi, who are you? You're giving me 2 kisses. It's very personal, you know.
Beijinhos.
But it's minor stuff. The second one on our list is actually the other way around, which is very normal over there in the US, and it's kind of an exception here in Portugal, and that is homeschooling. It is not very common here, where in the US it's very normal, right?
Yeah, it's totally acceptable and common in the US. Like, for example, I was homeschooled in 1st and 2nd grade. My mom cleaned houses for a living, which was a business owner, and then she had like 4 kids and she would just take us around cleaning houses. And I remember just being on the kitchen table of whose ever house, like doing our homework. And it was pretty cool because by the time I started 3rd grade, I was like ahead of my classmates. Like I already knew cursive and I was ahead of them in other subjects. So in the US, it's pretty common and there's not a lot of regulation around it. So if you want to homeschool your kids in the US, perfectly fine.
And a lot of programs.
And there's a lot of programs that support it too. So it's very like you're empowered and enabled to homeschool your children in the US, and there's lots of infrastructure there for it.
Here in Portugal, it's different. It's more of a classic system here. They really want the kids in school, but it's not impossible to homeschool. It is allowed. There are rules
legal.
For this. It's legal, but there's not as much information out there as I would want. Like Nora is 1.5 right now. I did not do a full research on homeschooling yet. We're just figuring out like what would fit us. But what I've researched so far, I feel like there's information missing, or I really have to dig to find the information that I need.
Yeah, like typical new parents, we're already researching colleges and stuff, even though we don't need to.
Yeah. No, so what I know is that here in Portugal, there's 2 routes basically that you can go on. The Portuguese way of homeschooling, so you would teach your kid at home the Portuguese curriculum. One of the requirements is that the person teaching the kid at home needs to live with the kid, so a parent, but also needs to have a university degree.
Luckily you do.
I do, so I just don't speak Portuguese that well that I can teach the Portuguese curriculum, I feel. But I got 4.5 more years to to get there. But yeah, there's a few requirements like that to be able to homeschool your kid. The other route is the international school. That would be in English, most likely. You can follow the British or the American curriculum that way. But if you don't approach this the right way, there is a possibility that it will not be recognized by the Ministry of Education here in Portugal. That could be a problem if you are, let's say, homeschooling your kid until they're like 10 or 12 and then they go to high school and you want to send them to a Portuguese high school. You have to prove that your kid went to a certain education over the past years and did the tests and has the grades and all the things. So
just make sure like all your credentials are transferable.
There's a lot of more documentation involved if you're going that route. Again, not impossible, and I don't know all the full details, but it's a little bit harder than in the US.
From a lot of expats we've talked to, if you're moving here from another country, it's actually cool to get your kids enrolled in the public schools, so it helps integrate them into the culture, helps them learn the language, but that can also be a difficult transition. But if you are already homeschooling your kids and you want to be able to do that here in Portugal, it is legal, so it's good to have that optionality. An interesting side note, in the Netherlands, you're not even allowed to homeschool your kids. It's not legal.
It's very, very hard to get that done. I know now that there's like a few more traveling families that are homeschooling their kids, but I think it's even more of an exception than here in Portugal to get that done in the Netherlands.
And just in terms of our lifestyle and our values, like being able to be location independent is like very important to us. So being able to homeschool our children is important to us because that allows you that freedom and flexibility of location.
Pretty sure that once we have done all the research and we know the homeschooling way here in Portugal, we're gonna make a video on it because it's going to be...
We'll do a deep dive.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there.
All right, next topic.
Number 3 in our list is tipping, because that seems to be very normal in the US.
Very normal, very encouraged, and also very annoying at the increase in tipping over the years. So I go back to the US almost every year to go visit the family and friends and whatnot, and it seems like every year the new norm has been increased. I think
that you mean the minimum that's normal to, like a percentage, right?
Yeah, like if you're looking at a credit card machine when you're paying for your service or product in the States, there's like a screen for tipping, and there's usually 4 different tiers. It used to be it started at 12 or even 10. And then 15, and I think the minimum now is set at 15%, but that's like the lowest expectation. So actually, what's expected is a minimum of 20%, when that used to be back in the day that 20% was like going above and beyond. But nowadays, like even if you're going to a Starbucks and it says, and you're not like getting anyone serving you, you're just picking up a coffee, it's like still kind of expected that you should tip, which I think is ridiculous. Like if no one's serving you and going out of their way for you, then why should you give them extra money? Like they're just putting a product on the counter. But here in Portugal, that is not expected. It's not expected to tip. You can go to a restaurant and it's perfectly fine if you don't tip. That's not to say you shouldn't tip. Like if you go to a restaurant and they did an above average job in their customer service to you, or the food was exceptional, or you were just really happy with your experience, please do tip. Like let the restaurant and the server know they did an amazing job, tip them, but it's not an expectation like it is in the US.
You don't have to tip 20% just because you're afraid of like maybe I'm insulting someone or whatsoever. That's not the case.
It's perfectly normal to just like, instead of putting even a percentage on the tip amount, perfectly normal just to round up. So let's say we went out to dinner and it cost 50 euro or like 53 euros. If I thought they did a really great job, I would just round up to 60 euros, for example.
That's that easy. It's just a difference in minimum wage, right? That's why the tipping culture is so heavily in the US.
Yeah, and it's not comparable because the minimum wage in the US is very different to here in Portugal. But in the US, the minimum wage for servers is not a lot. So it's been in the culture for years and years that they make up the remainder of their pay in tips, and that's what they rely on.
All right. Off to number 4 on our list, which is mold, or how the Portuguese live with mold in their houses compared to how the Americans would respond to that. Because here in Portugal, a lot of houses are old and they're built out of concrete or stone, and especially in the winter with the moisture in this country, it's the perfect situation for mold to grow. So here it is generally more accepted that there is mold or that grows here from time to time. You just clean it and you accept it and it's fine. Where I think in the US people respond a little bit different to having mold in the house.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember growing up in the US, and if there was any signs of mold in the house, or like I said before, my mom, she cleans houses for a living. Like, we always grew up that mold was very bad, very dangerous. If there was any issue, it had to be dealt with immediately, and so it could never come back. It's like a very serious thing. So moving to Portugal has been interesting in that, yeah, there's mold. I see mold in lots of like Airbnbs we've stayed in and stuff like that. I mean, even in our own home, we see it more often. It's just been interesting because here it's kind of like no big deal. Yeah. Although I have talked to some of my Portuguese friends and they're like, no, we're like aware that it's like common here and we know it's bad, but it's just like it's a common issue with the way houses are built here in Portugal. They are not built in a way that is defensive against mold, which is just poor quality of construction here. Yeah. So
it also a little bit depends on where in the house you have mold. Like for us, it only grows in the bathroom in the winter. So that's
by the window sills.
Yeah, and that's just a simple clean it up and it's done. It's not like in the wall and like moisture in there. But for example, we have seen some houses, because we're in the process of buying property maybe. We've seen some houses with severe moisture in the walls.
It's also in one of the most humid parts in Portugal. Even though Portugal is considered one of the warmest countries in the EU, which is true, I was also surprised to see how many regions there are that are very humid. So
it's coastal.
Yeah, and I grew up in a very dry climate in Phoenix, Arizona, so like seeing mold was very rare for me as well, so maybe that's why I was so shocked by it. But you also grew up in a very humid climate, so what was it like in the houses for you growing up?
No, the houses in the Netherlands are built differently. I did not grow up with mold. Or knowing about it at least. I think it's just a matter of ventilation, insulation, central heating, keeping it clean, and all those things combined just keep the mold away. In the Netherlands, it's just a more modern build than these old houses here in the city centers.
Yeah, and what's been interesting is through our house shopping experience, we've become more educated on the mold issue here in Portugal. So we've been house hunting recently, and a lot of the houses we looked at, as she mentioned, do have a lot of moisture and damp issues in the walls, and that's not uncommon. So if you found a house in the United States who had very moist walls or there was lots of mold issues, you could use that as leverage to negotiate down the price. But here, you would basically have to see water coming out of the walls to be able to negotiate down the price. If you tell them, hey, the walls are damp and there's some mold here and there, they're like, yeah, so it's just normal, it's accepted here. Now, if you shop for like a brand new build, a house that was built in the last 5 years or so, where in more modern construction methodologies and techniques, they are putting in, traditional defense mechanisms so you don't have these damp and mold issues in the walls, then you're likely to better find a house that protects against it more. But if you buy an older home, like potentially the one that we're gonna buy, we're gonna have some moisture issues and we're gonna have to do some renovations and some upgrades to battle against it. We're gonna have to get dehumidifiers to put throughout the house, which is not uncommon here. There's a market here for buying dehumidifiers. And so it's just something you learn to live with. And so if you are coming here and you're gonna buy a house to live in, just be aware that if you wanna buy a home with like no mold or moist issues, that you might wanna look into a newer construction. All right, number 5 on our list is online shopping. So in the United States, when you order a product online, it's not uncommon that you can get that product delivered to your house the same day, not the same day, the next day. And that's because of how crazy efficient Amazon is in the United States. And that's just become the expectation in the US. But here in Portugal, you don't have same day shipping. I've never got a product the same day.
No.
And that's because you can actually use Amazon here in Portugal, so that's great. But when you order products on Amazon here, you're actually using the Amazon in Spain. So Amazon.es for España. So it's not like they have a bunch of warehouses, Amazon warehouses throughout Portugal. You're not getting products the same day. Although the other day I did get a product the next day for the first time, which was cool. So it is getting better.
Yeah, It's not impossible to get the next day delivery if you're, I think, paying for Amazon Prime and all the things, but
Depends on the product.
then we're just talking about Amazon, right? But there in the US, you have so many websites that you can order from online. It's like, okay, the US is one of the biggest e-commerce markets. So first of all, it's not even a fair comparison. And it's not impossible to order things online here. It's just the expectation should be different. It can take a week. I ordered books for Nora. It took a week to get here.
Yeah, we're not trying to say that like ordering online isn't common here. It's very common standard practice.
Yeah.
Like, we order our groceries online, for example. We're just trying to set expectations for Americans. Don't expect to come here and you can order on Amazon and get it the same day. You don't get that here.
I also feel like the variety is a little different than in the States. Like, I have no problem finding products or clothing online. I order a lot. But now that I'm pregnant, I noticed again, like last time as well, like where I haven't found that many websites where I can find maternity clothing that I actually like. Like I know about H&M, Kiabi, About You, Verbouwdet, and all those, but not the boutique stores or the specific Portuguese brands with maternity clothing. So if you know of any, please leave it in the comments because I am definitely buying in the coming weeks. But yeah, I feel like in the US you would have so much to choose from that you feel overwhelmed with the choices. Here I feel like I wish I had a few more choices. I think that's more of a difference. That's it about online shopping, I think.
Yep.
All right.
And number 6 on our list is drinking in public.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Yep, drinking in the streets. In Portugal, it is perfectly legal and acceptable to just have a beer on the street while you're walking in public spaces, wherever you go, just as long as you're not being belligerent and disruptive to the public, of course. But yeah, it's a pretty cool thing about living here. They treat you like an adult.
Well, in the US it's prohibited, right? You can get arrested if you're drinking.
Yeah, so in the US there's open container laws and you're not really allowed to drink in public spaces. Sure, maybe you could go on a walk around your neighborhood and drink a beer and no one's gonna bother you, but if you get a jerk cop that crosses you, yeah, you can get fined and ticketed, so.
Now here it's different. You can bring a case of beers to the beach, to a park, for a picnic or whatsoever. You can walk down the street with a beer in your hand. Glass containers though are here and there a problem, I would say. They don't really like that and I get that part, but in general, yeah, you're allowed to just drink.
It's just nice because you don't have to worry about it. And like, let's say you're at a bar in the States and if you go to drink outside or something and have a cigarette, there's usually like a designated drinking area that you're only allowed to drink in. And it's just nice that you don't have to worry about that in Portugal. Just drink wherever you want to drink and don't act like a jerk and you're good to go.
Respectfully, of course. Do not misbehave because then you're in trouble here too. Yeah.
And that's something that's also different is just the drinking culture in general a little bit because in the United States, the legal drinking age is 21. Here it's 18. So when you see younger people drinking here, they're usually just more chill and nonchalant about it. Whereas in the United States, people, I don't know, it's just different. So it's like the normalest thing here. All right, well, that about wraps it up for this week's video.
Yes, 6 things that are completely normal here in Portugal that are slightly different in the US.
Yeah, were you aware of all these or were there anyone new or surprising to you? If there was, let us know in the comments.
Now, if you want to know about the bigger differences that we have encountered here in Portugal, watch our Culture Shock video, which we published a couple of weeks ago. Thank you for watching.
And remember,
Explore life beyond borders.
Bye.
Ciao.